What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. We are back again with my good friend, Mike Wildt. And so off camera, we were just talking a little bit about his holistic journey into health and wellness. And so I said, we have to talk about this on the show. So he's here today to kind of tell us and walk us through his journey with health and wellness. So Mike, I know during the pandemic, I started seeing you post things on Instagram and about like bread making. Even actually, I want to say pre-pandemic, you actually were making breads for like the teams, the worship teams at church and things like that. So everybody started flipping out about that. But then you really got into it during the pandemic when things shut down and you started upping things, like upping the ante and getting into like pizza doughs and all that. So can you talk us through that? Like what got you into that process of like bread making and the whole holistic journey?
Yeah. I feel like putting holistic and bread in the same sentence doesn't quite be so confused.
That's true. Yeah.
No. I agree with it, but like I'm just talking about society and their like viewpoint. They're like bread and holistic, no way. Where I totally feel that way.
Right.
But yeah, I think I actually started with pizza. Like I went on a family trip like forever ago to Italy.
Okay.
And we had like amazing pizza out there, and I came back and I was like, why is pizza not like that here? Like what are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
So I found this one recipe. It was like this guy, Jeff Verasano, like I'll never forget. And so many people know about this guy and his recipe.
Okay.
It's like a 60-page recipe.
Yeah.
Like no joke.
Yeah.
And it had all these words I'd never heard of before. Like I wasn't really like a cook or anything.
Yeah, right.
But I learned like step by step, like, and learned all these new words and how to like create a sourdough starter and all this stuff. And then found myself able to like create pizza, like not at the level of like, some of the places I went out, but like in the beginning it was much different than the pizzas that we were getting from like Domino's, which is like the go-to. Like, no hate
cardboard and some cheese and meat.
Yeah. No, hey, it tastes good.
My tummy hurts afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. It's certainly the case. So started making like sourdough pizzas essentially maybe like 10 years ago.
I don't think I've ever had a sourdough pizza. What is that? What's the difference? Like, what does it taste like?
Yeah, it's you get a little hint of that sourdough flavor, but at the end of the day, like instead of 10 ingredients or 15 ingredients in your dough and sugars and all this, it's literally flour, water, salt. That's
wow.
it. You have your sourdough starter, which is comprised of water and flour and like bacteria from the air.
Good bacteria.
Yeah. And then, you mix that with flour, water, salt, and like 3 ingredients makes an incredible tasting crust. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot more labor. That's the thing. But you digest it better. I mean, it was... And at the time, I wasn't doing it for digestibility. I just wanted like good pizza.
Right, yeah, because that's what I was told. Like when I had diverticulitis, I had to kind of go on a diverticulitis diet to reset my system. And one of the things my doctor was saying to eat was sourdough because that would help heal my gut. But then when I started getting sourdoughs, I started realizing there's different type of sourdoughs as I went to the farmer's market, and they were like, there's ones that are fermented, and they're the old way before bread makers started trying to cut corners and all this stuff. And so talk us through like the different what sourdough can, like a healthy sourdough, like what it can do for the human gut.
Yeah, the bacteria, we have bacteria in our gut. There's good bacteria, bad bacteria, and what a lot of research has shown is that there are very helpful bacteria that are in sourdough for your gut to build the good bacteria to fight the bad. So, there are specific people, like this one woman who runs it's like a UK company, and her entire PhD thesis is based on this that she's writing right now. Okay. I don't know if it's done. Yeah. And I can't think of her name, but, I think that our culture has thought of bread always as this like carb that's bad for you. And like there's a lot of things that is in 99% of our bread right now that is not good for you.
Right,
like,
right.
You know,
like that Wonder Bread.
like the Wonder Bread.
How do they get it so white?
Oh, exactly.
Flour and sugar.
Yeah.
Lots of bleach and sugar.
Yeah. So yeah, we really went an industrialized way of making bread for, you know, which at the time during the war, it was important for bread to be able to stay shelf stable, right? Because a lot of men were out to war. They couldn't ship things as well and quickly. So it totally made sense from like it was like a scientific miracle, right? To like make bread that could sit on a shelf for 2 weeks or however long. Wonder Bread, I think, might be 2 years. I'm not sure.
Right, yeah, I know. I'm like, that one Wonder Bread, I don't even know if it gets moldy, man.
It might not.
Crazy.
But you know what happens with all of that? It's like, great, the shelf life is great. The cost of processing is way less. Like all of these things are great for the producer, but you know, without years and years of time that had to pass for people to realize that those ingredients were not doing anything good for the human body. You know, at the time they would never know. But the nutrients that come in unprocessed flour, organic flour, not sprayed with glyphosates and all the, you know, if you don't have flour that is organic and like truly certified organic, like there's a very, very good chance that it's sprayed with glyphosate.
Wow. Fascinating.
Roundup, weed killer, like all that stuff.
Yeah, so it's kind of to keep the bugs off of the fields. Yeah, well, that's crazy.
But if you get organic flour, if you have sourdough starter and you're using like pure unprocessed, like real salt, like you're essentially making bread the way bread was made hundreds of years ago.
Right.
You know, and you're getting actual nutrients, you're getting good bacteria for your gut.
Wow.
You're digesting it more because the sourdough bacteria eats away at the gluten. So by the time you're eating it, it's already like almost, I don't know if it's half processed or how processed, but it's more processed than without having that.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you started getting into bread making from after you learned all this knowledge. And I know you were baking it for the team. You know, fast forward it to our wedding. You made us a special loaf for our wedding. Yeah. And you wrote the Easters on it in flour, which is really immaculate and amazing. We had several people taking pictures of it. It was amazing.
I love that.
My wife is virtually celiac. She's not quite, but she's like a step under celiac. She was able to have this bread and not only like take a little piece, but eat like a good amount of it and not have any interruptions with like gluten intolerance and all that stuff. So what is the reasoning behind even celiacs being able to have like the bread that you're making, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like diagnosed celiacs, I probably wouldn't recommend the bread for because they have an allergy to gluten, and there's still gluten in the bread. Like, it's not a gluten-free bread.
Yeah.
Is
it just like a lower gluten?
It's much lower. So the sourdough bacteria will, during the fermentation process, it eats away at a lot of gluten. It's still present.
Okay.
You know, there are a lot of people who have gluten intolerances that they've been dealing with for a long time. And a lot of times, sometimes it is gluten. And like a celiac, it would be a gluten intolerance. Sometimes it's an allergy to sprays, synthetic sprays. That, you know, so if it's bread not made with organic, they might have an allergy towards glyphosate or one of the other herbicides or pesticides that is frequently or always used in conventional farming.
Wow.
So there are also people who might have an intolerance to like dry yeast.
Okay.
So a lot of the bread, rather than having a sourdough starter and then, you know, creating the yeast from the air, and naturally, they're using, it could be baker's yeast, there's like refrigerated yeast, there's dry yeast, instant dry yeast, all these different things that are lab processed yeast. So it's just not in its most natural form. So some people have intolerance to that.
Wow, I never heard of that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard of a yeast infection, but I haven't heard of, you know,
intolerance to it. Yeah. I mean, it's you know, so much of the bread today, there's many ingredients. Like you could look at a piece of bread and there's like 10 ingredients, you know, and I'm not talking about the grains and stuff. I'm talking about when they take flour, and it's called enriched bread flour.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So and that's what Wonder Bread
or
was.
bleached flour too. I've seen, right?
Yeah, there's
enriched bleached flour.
Yeah.
I've
they
seen
say
like
unbleached. They say bleached.
Okay,
there's
yeah.
different variations.
But I've seen that on the label there.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Okay.
So like that's essentially what Wonder Bread was, right? Is that they took yeast, they bleached it, and I don't know what the process of bleaching looks like, but they basically kill everything in it.
I mean, do we want to know?
Yeah. Probably not.
They put to do a Michael Jackson process.
Yes. So they basically kill everything that is good. All of those like nutrients that I'm talking about when you eat like real flour, bread from real flour, like you get those ingredients. But when they kill everything in it, it makes the flour way more shelf stable, right?
Wow.
Because all of those things that are in it are living things. So like it doesn't stay on the shelf that long. Now you have flour that stays on the shelf for a long period of time. But during like the Wonder Bread days, they were like, okay, well, we killed all the good stuff. So like we took out the iron and like the zinc and like all the different benefits.
Wow.
So like enriched flour is essentially killed flour that they put ingredients back in. So iron, niacin, like all of these different things to make up for what they took out.
Wow.
The problem is like the human body was not created in a way to be able to, and some people deal with it fine. Like every person's different, and some people really feel the effects of it and some people don't. Like some people can eat a piece of Wonder Bread no problem. Another person could really suffer from that.
Oh yeah.
And have inflammation.
Right,
so
right.
yeah, so the gluten intolerance that has become today's like gluten intolerance, can't eat bread, is often, from what I've researched, wrapped around actually these other processes that are happening in 99% of our bread.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool, man. I mean, so how did you get started on this whole journey of like researching and like actually putting into application these practices on how to make sourdough or like how to make pizza or the healthy way? What put you on this journey? Like,
I think like, I have a complete love for pizza. I think that's what started me off.
Me too, man.
But
I wish I could have it every day.
Yeah. We should have it every day.
We should, man. Do they do that in Italy? I don't know.
I believe they do. They have to.
They just walk a lot. They just walk a lot. So they walk all the carbs up.
Yeah. No, I've dealt with my own like very long battle of gut issues as well. So like I think the love for pizza kind of started it, but then as I started dealing with various gut issues over the past however many years and trying to figure out like what that is and where it comes from and going to all sorts of doctors and trying to like discover it, I think one of the biggest things that started helping was eating things with clean ingredients, right? So like doing away with the Domino's if I'm going to eat pizza and doing away with bread that has the enriched flour, and I think like it's kind of hard to find, right? Like it's not super easy. It's not easy to find pizza the way that I make it, and it's not easy to find bread the way I make it. There's some spots in LA that do it the same, and I've learned awesome things from, but it's not common. It's not like you can always go to a grocery store and get these things. So I was like, all right, well, I'll learn how to make it. Like whatever, and then once you start doing it, then you get into this long, like I've been doing it for whatever, 10 years or probably maybe even 15 at this point. But, once you start learning like all the intricacies of it, it's kind of like becomes an obsession of like tweaking and making different flour blends and using different water and all of this stuff to like create a product that I love sharing with people. And like, especially people like your wife who, struggles with bread. And I love being able to be like, but like try this bread. There's a lot of people that I give bread to who can't eat bread and don't eat bread and are gluten-free people who eat it without issues. So, so
like
it's
none whatsoever, man.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do in your pizzas? Because like some people have lactose intolerance, like myself. Like, do you have that with your gut stuff, or?
I don't have lactose intolerance.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Can lactose intolerant people like have your pizza? Or is that,
I don't do. I actually have just started experimenting with some like vegan cheese and stuff.
okay, vegan cheese.
Yeah, I haven't done a ton of it because normally it's not what I do or know well.
Yeah.
But you know, the cheese that I source is like from this company that supplies a lot of the like higher end restaurants, and they like have a very specific cows that they pull their milk from, and they do it more of the old fashioned way where they're taking raw milk. And
Raw, yeah. Because
like,
I can have that.
Yeah.
I can have raw. That's the way I can have like enjoy pizza without having to take my enzyme.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And the thing is with like milk and cheese that is raw, it has the enzymes in it, right? So when things are non-pasteurized, right? So once they heat it up and like do the flash pasteurization, it kills all those enzymes that are breaking down the lactose, and then our body is not able to process them as well. Okay. There's even like different genetics of cows. Like some people are like, oh, I can eat cheese and drink milk in you know, Europe, but I can't do it here. And it's like, well, it's not like they have magic milk out there, right? Like, that's not the thing.
Their cows are so wonderful and magical.
Yeah, exactly. They fly. They're incredible.
They fly. They tell me my fortune of my life.
That's a good cow.
That's a good cow.
Right? So, like, there's different cows with different genetic designs. There's these A1, A2 cows are what we have here, but A2 cows are what they have out there. Yeah. And they're in their genetics and the enzymes that they produce in their milk, it breaks down lactose at a different level than the cows that we have in the United States. So there's starting to be some companies who are breeding A2 cows in America, like this one amazing company, Alexander Family Farms. They do like really high end, like regenerative, organically fed cows. And they're A2 genetic. So it's like, I mean, they have it at Whole Foods,
I think I seen that. I actually saw it in the store. I was like, is this the stuff that you were talking about? I took a picture. Yes. I forgot to send it to you and asked if it was the same one. But yeah, I wanted to try that because I've been doing buffalo cheese, which is really good. Yeah. Buffalo mozzarella is crazy. I've been making pizzas with that. Yep. And that has actually really... Yeah, I can't tell the difference hardly. You know, it's still creamy like a mozzarella. Good. So, but yeah, I wanted to try the A2 because I remember you mentioned that before.
Yep. And with the buffalo milk, it's like lower lactose, right? Or is it lactose free?
Lactose free.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, they use the milk with the buffalo. It's just really creamy. They do the whole process of mozzarella. Yep. I think it's called Buff, B-U-F mozzarella at Whole Foods.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff's great.
Yeah.
It's out of like Colombia, actually.
Dude,
where they're doing that.
Bro, it's insane. Like it's taking the pizza game to the next level.
Yeah,
man.
I've used that cheese.
It's really good. Yeah. So, and then they have goat milk. So I've done the raw goat milk cheddar. Yep. But I think the difference from what I saw, like I worked with a trainer and he was saying, you can have a little cheese in your enzyme salad. It was like, he made me eat an enzyme salad for my gut issues. And so I would have to do this raw carrots have these enzymes in there to help you digest things. Wow. So he always had me do a raw carrot, start my day with a raw carrot enzyme salad. Okay. To help with digestion. And then he said, I want you to put a little bit of cheese in there. I was like, what? And so the only cheese I could have was a cheese at Costco that was, I forget the kind of cheese it was, but it was a dry, hard aged cheese. Okay. And it was from Europe somewhere.
Like a Manchego maybe, or like
something like that. It was like hard, you know, and it was in shreds. And okay. So, but I said, why that cheese? And he was like, because it's the only cheese virtually really in America that still has animal rennet in it. And he was like, the difference when people would take tours to Italy and they can have all this cheese without having lactose intolerance is it still has, they left the animal rennet in their cheeses and their milks. Yeah. So the animal rennet is what helps us apparently like digest.
Yep. Do you know what it is?
No.
So animal rennet, like especially traditionally, so cows have, I think it's 4 stomachs. Okay. Is that right?
Man, 4.
Pretty sure it's 4.
Wow.
And each thing has a different level of digestion. So animal rennet comes from one of the stomachs from a cow. So it's an enzyme that breaks down to like a nth degree or whatever.
Wow.
And they realized, I forget the story, how they figured out that was the case, but it essentially breaks down like an enzyme, breaks down the lactose to a further degree than makes it very easy to digest for people, right? Wow. And you're right, like you see it, like if you get international cheese all the time, you see it in there, but like here we don't have that, or it's made from a vegetable rennet.
Vegetable,
So, it's just like another, corner that we've kind of cut. That not everyone can process as well.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what do you think of, I've heard you use this phrase before, regenerative farming and agriculture. What is that? Like, can you tell us, expound on that, tell us more about what that process is? When people hear that, it's like, well, regenerative, what do you mean?
Yeah.
What is the difference between regenerative agriculture and like organic and everything else?
Yeah. It's like an interesting question, because I feel like there is a lot of conversation about like how do we define regenerative agriculture. I think in the most simplest form, regenerative agriculture is the regeneration of the soil in order to have a better yield and result from the plants that you grow, right? So the thing is that can be done like conventionally or organically, right? Because technically, like, you could spray a bunch of synthetics into soil, and if you're regenerating its health, but you're using these like synthetic inputs, you're still regenerating the soil. So I've almost more recently been using like regenerative organic, which means like any of your inputs that are put in are of organic matter. There's no synthetics. And like a lot of people will do like no-till. So like, traditionally over the past however many years, they're like farmers are using these huge machines that till the land to be able to plant seeds, right?
I've seen that,
But the problem with that is there's all of this life under the soil, under the top layer. There's like this mitochondria of like, there's fungi and root systems and all of this stuff that is all working. It's taking nutrients, or when it rains, it'll take water. And it's kind of like the governor of like all the plants in the field or the garden, right? And so it's like, oh, this plant needs more, I'll take some from here. And when you are tilling and just ripping all of that up, which is like kind of a normal, conventional thing to do on farms for like row tilling, you're like crushing all of that. And you're also releasing all of this carbon into the air. Whereas like regenerative agriculture is kind of, influencing the soil to be in its most healthy place. You're not wrecking or tearing through all the stuff below. Carbon is able to be absorbed into the soil, and carbon is a nutrient as well, right? Like plants need it to grow. And so you have all of these plants that are set up in this system that is really just more like nature focused, right? There's this amazing documentary that I feel like does a great job of introduction.
The Big Little Farm?
His Biggest Little Farm, dude.
Biggest Little Farm, man. Shout out to Biggest Little Farm. I went to their booth, the Santa Monica Farmers Market, and bought some produce. It was expensive as heck, man, but it was good. It was good.
You've seen the doc?
I've seen it, man. It was a journey. The highs and lows, man. How it started with the little dog in their apartment in Santa Monica, and he just was too much for that, and so they went through 2 apartments, and finally said, "We got to buy some land." And I think it was at Moore Park, California. And he went out and bought this dry piece. It was like an old dried up farm. And you go ahead and tell the rest. But yeah, man, it was really fascinating. It blew me away. It was a journey, man. I was like emotional. I was crying, and I was like excited, because they met this guru guy who just really had this whole, regenerative system that he put in place, and that a lot of people doubted. But they pulled it off, man. He was right all along.
He's right all along. And I mean, it was like a dirt lot, I mean, it was I forget how many acres. It's like a big, it's big for like a small, it's a Biggest Little Farm.
The Biggest Little Farm.
It's large, but it's not like hundreds of thousands of acres, or tens of thousands, whatever. But yeah, that was their whole system, was like, how do we take this land, regenerate the soil. They use methods that took like, they call it high density grazing. So they'll take like cows and they'll basically stomp on the land.
Right,
and
I've seen that, yeah.
that'll help regenerate it.
Yeah.
And all like natural inputs, right? So
like they let the sheep go through the orchards.
Yep.
And then the sheep would go through the orchards when they had an infestation of snails, and the sheep would eat the snails, and then they would poop, around the trees, which would create, the soil or the manure or whatever. They help the trees and everything else grow.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like in the past or historically, it's like we have this problem. What can we use to solve it? Instead of, and what they did was they're like, okay, with the snails. And I think they brought like crows in too to like eat snails. And then the crows were creating a problem. So then they brought in another piece of nature to work with the crows. And like
ducks, they had ducks walking through and eating things, or maybe snails or certain bugs. But
they like created their own like Garden of Eden, like an ecosystem.
That's what it reminded me of. So I was going to ask you, like, what do you think about regenerative farming? Does it, because it sort of reminds you of like the Garden of Eden, like how God designed everything to be.
Yep. 100%. That's like how I think that's one of the elements that excites me so much about it is like God created these plants and these animals, and they all do certain things if you let nature kind of do it. But we've really like created our own way of like farming with like rows of corn, whereas like no, he wanted everything to be included because this crop next to this crop is good, and like this animal does this, and like the bad part is this, but it's good for this animal. And like there's this amazing, like you get to see nature really working, and like when people watch that doc, you're like you can actually visually see the ecosystem, and they talk about it that they create by inputting other pieces of nature instead of like a spray here or like a synthetic
pesticide over here. Man. So
which we know are like not good for the earth or for our bodies. So it's just kind of been what the norm has been for the last 80 years or whenever this kind of came out. But
I love how they let the chickens roam around certain sections of the fields, and then they would just move the whole like house, and that's kind of how they would like sort of tilt the land. They would eat like certain parts of the pasture.
They would eat weeds. There's weeds there. Cool. These animals can eat the weeds. Then they poop out, and that's like a natural fertilizer for this section. And like they just basically take nature and help like harness it. And it's like an amazing thing.
Is it true that they did like a scientific study somewhere where they compared a regenerative like piece of agriculture, like a spinach leaf, against a organic spinach leaf, or is that true? They did something like that?
Yes, there's an amazing company called the Bionutrient Association.
Okay,
they're I think they're on the East Coast, like brilliant people, but they've been doing exactly that study where they'll like take a spinach leaf conventionally made, a spinach leaf organically made or created, grown, and a spinach leaf like organically and regeneratively grown with like no input, like, and they're comparing the nutrient density of those leaves, right?
Wow.
Not only that, they're doing lab research and tests on these leaves, and like how much bad stuff does it have in it and how much good stuff. But just talking about the good stuff, like the nutrient density of a spinach leaf. And I want to say, and you can't quote, I think it was something like that, like 1 to 14. Like a conventional leaf, the amount of nutrient that it provided was the same as, 14 of the conventional leaves was the same as one leaf that was regeneratively organically grown.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Like think about insane, a salad, right?
Man. That's a whole lot of salads you got to eat to catch up to a regenerative.
Yeah.
That's one. That's like a golden child when he put the one leaf and it's like eternal life.
Yes. It glows and sings at you.
He survived on one leaf. It's so potent, man.
If you think about the fact that like you eat a spinach salad, one bowl like this.
Right.
And you would have to eat 14 bowls just like that.
Oh.
To get the same amount of nutrients. And like people are talking about, we're like, nutritionally malnourished, right? And it's like, well, where does that come from? Like grocery stores, even if you have like an organic spinach leaf, let's call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Like those things, I think I read somewhere it can last like 39 days before
It just starts.
it goes into the store.
Yeah, oh, that's crazy.
And like, so we're talking like it's picked.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, it's like farmers pick stuff, they take it to the market,
Yeah.
their own markets or farmers markets,
Yeah.
like biblical days or what have you. Like,
Yeah.
and they pick it and they bring it, people buy it and they eat it like within that same week.
I love when you go to a farmer's market, it's still got dirt on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, because
like,
we shop at farmer's market 2 times a week sometimes, and we just go to each one that has different stuff. And it's almost like a compliment when you see a little piece of dirt on, you say, "Oh, I'll take that one."
yes.
You know, versus in the store,
Give me
it's,
the fresh ones.
it's all glossy. You can see your reflection. You're all like, you know, you like that apple got me looking good, man. You know.
You can see your reflection.
Yeah, they got all glossed up and wax.
Oh shoot, I forgot to part my hair
Right?
today.
Yeah. Oh damn, I didn't see that little piece of danger right there. Man.
Wait a minute. This apple's not a mirror?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting how things have gone, and I've heard that our topsoil in America is completely dead at this point, and that might attribute to the reason why a lot of agriculture isn't what it used to be. They said 300 something years ago, you know, it's just like the agriculture was different. Like, you know, even there wasn't like I guess a difference between organic and agriculture. It was just like, you know,
Yeah.
it was just everything was organic. It's just like when you go to Norway. I had this friend from Norway. She came here for school. She went to BSSM, and then she asked me one day after church. She said, "Can I ask you something?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And she said, "Why does things say like grass fed, or you know like?" You know, I said, "Oh, because that's when they like roam the fields and eat." She's like, "I know that, but why do you have to say that? We already know that." And I said, "Oh, sweetheart, let me help you out here. You know, here in America, there's cows that don't really even see the pasture. They kind of sit in pens, and then they're injected with antibiotics and hormones. You know, and then there's the cows."
Her mind is just like,
Yeah,
what?
she's like, "What?" You know, she's blown away because she said in Norway they just graze the hillsides. They're everywhere. And I said, "Yeah, that would be a dream."
a dream. We pay top dollar for that kind of thing.
We
here.
pay top. She's like, "So you guys pay extra to have what is just normal in other countries?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, basically."
Yeah.
And that's when I realized like our whole like nutrition system is pretty screwed up. Like we have to pay extra for what should be just normal. What, you know, maybe a couple hundred years ago was normal. Even 100 years ago,
Yeah.
it was just normal.
Yeah.
And now it's like, you know, it's a niche thing
Yeah.
that you have to pay. It's like a luxury. You have to pay extra. And so I've heard even family members and different people, especially in lower income, like, you know, inner cities, they're like, "I would get that if I could afford it." You know, you're like, "What do you mean? Like, everyone should be able to have access to this." And they're like, "Oh, that's for the rich people." That's, you know. And so that's the other side of it. Is like, I grew up in the hood, and my mom said, "You go around the corner to get some milk at the corner store." Dude, like the milk was insanely thick. And we were like, what kind of milk is this? And we realized in the hoods, they were giving us like poor versions of milk. And then so my mom started catching on to that. I think they were injecting it with hormones and all kind of other stuff. We didn't know everything was fully in it. We just knew it tasted different. So then we would take trips further outside of where we lived in the ghetto and to get more cleaner ingredients, you know, because that's just how the system is rigged.
Yeah.
You know? It's crazy.
In order to make as much money as possible.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. So how did you, like, where are you at with regenerative? Like, are you working on any like passion projects? I know earlier you talked about a little bit of a documentary that.
Yeah. I mean, the documentary is focused on a guy who goes into schools, and he, like, we all know what like public school food is like.
Yeah.
You know, it's like all frozen, processed, everything filled with so many ingredients and preservatives and all these things. And so he goes into these schools and he shows them how to, within the same budget, he like teaches all of the people who are working in the kitchen how to cook from scratch. He makes deals with local farmers, like organic stuff. Like, you know, we need to hit this budget. And the whole principle is that he goes in there, and for the same budget that they're already paying, he shows them how to create scratch-made organic meals.
Wow.
And it starts off by like one a week, and by the end of him being there, it's every meal is that way. So it's really in line. Like I think like the word food sovereignty, right? The right to food, like quality food. I think as human beings, we have that right.
Yeah.
And I think part of me at one point was like, I want to like move somewhere that has that available, that it's not so hard to find.
Right, yeah.
And then I kind of decided like, wait, this is an incredible opportunity to like, you know, pour into this industry and try to find new ways to make real and organic and highly nutritionally dense food available for people. And so I'm trying to figure out what that looks like.
So good, man.
Yeah.
Love that, dude.
And the more I dive in, the more I see like this has been going on for a long time. It's just not, it's not like as big as industrial farming, but there's people who've been doing it for decades. Like they only do organic for decades. They only do regenerative, and like we have all these names for it now. And like really, like it's funny. We were talking about like regenerative organic agriculture, and like you were talking about 300 years ago, just called agriculture.
Right.
Like that's just how it was.
It's like each 100 years we had to add another title on.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. Grass-fed cows.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, the more that I chat with people and share my own story of my gut health, like so many people are like, oh my gosh, I deal with that with my gut too.
Yeah.
And so the more you talk about it, the more you realize everyone is kind of having these intolerances to all of these things. And it's like, oh, like just take Tums or antacids or whatever.
Which don't work.
Yeah.
Actually, over time, it make things worse. You just keep popping them, you know?
Yeah. It's like you get rid of the symptoms maybe for a second.
Yeah.
I go into like, if I'm at a CVS or something, I go to the like antacid system and I take pictures of it because it'll be like this, like whatever next to it, like Advil or something, painkillers are like all filled. And then the like stomach section of Tums and antacids and all this is just like wiped clean,
right?
And you're just like, this is a problem.
It's
like,
a problem.
This
man.
is an issue.
Yeah. No, I when I was in Reading, I ended up having really bad acid reflux that I had to get rushed to the ER on several occasions too, and they gave me something called a white cocktail. It was so bad, it
What is that?
pour up my acid. Sometimes when I sleep at night, the acid would pour up like a fountain, and sometimes I would have like acid come out of my mouth. So one night, it was so bad. My roommate, shout out to Brandon Aronson, we were playing for Jesus Coach at the time, and it was a night before I had to go on the stage. I just had it pouring out of my mouth, and I woke up in the middle of the night. And Brandon's like, "Are you okay?" He came in my room, and I was like, I don't feel good at all, and I was like, it was the worst pain I ever had. And so he rushed me to the ER, and they gave me something called the white cocktail, and so this calms my acid down immediately. And then they put me on the medication. I never went and got the medication. I was kind of rebellious. I was like, man, because I hate drugs. I always hated drugs. My mom said it was tough to get me to take aspirin if I had a headache. I refused. I don't know why. I just always. My mom said even as a kid, it was hard to get me to take medicine, but I loved my vegetables, and I think there's just something in me that just hated drugs, and so I would think about trying to find a better way. And so people like Benny Johnson, shout out to Benny Johnson, she just passed away, and she really helped me find natural ways of doing things. That's when I realized God's heart is for like us to also heal ourselves through nutrition and amongst like prayer. Like we always pray for one another, pray for healing, but I also do believe that I've seen God heal people. Even Benny, I've watched Benny Johnson be healed through nutrition. Like Rhonda, she's like a naturopathic doctor who would teach at some of Benny Johnson's wellness conventions, and she helped her over her some of her conditions. And so Benny would sometimes email me like recipes and things through Facebook Messenger, and and so I asked, and I realized, I was like, okay, I realized it was like if I have too much dairy, our dairy is highly acidic, then that creates the whole acid bomb within me. So I had to back up on the dairy, I had to back up on certain things like spicy foods, and then I realized, okay, it kind of goes away. So, but yeah, it's really interesting to see like how you can heal yourself through like just nutrition and health and wellness, like just educating yourself on these products, what's going into them, you know, what's not going into them, you know, all that stuff. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, there's some doctors out there who are now, they've like moved away from their practices to focus on this, because they're like, in all of medical school, we never read one book about like nutrition, like food nutrition and how to heal with food. Like we learned everything about all the, you know, biology and the human body and all of these things and how to treat and, you know, different medications and all of that. But they really, there was this one video of this doctor that was like showing all of his textbooks, and none of them were food based, where in some other countries that's part of the training, right? Like doctorate training.
India, so many different places.
And like we don't have that here for whatever reason, or at least not from some of the doctors that I've currently been following. But, so then it like makes us do our own research, right? So I've been researching so much and trying to follow different doctors and talking with you. I mean, I feel like I learned a ton from you, and you've had a journey of like trying to figure out clean eating, you know, and all of that. And
I'm still on that journey, man, trying to figure out, you know, but it is like, it's amazing. I feel like, I don't know, what about you? I feel like God's heart's in it. Have you felt that? Like,
100%.
As you were researching, do you feel like, man, I feel like God's on this?
Yeah. I think that God created us to be a certain way, and like our bodies are a temple, and you know, He created all of this food to be available, like super tasty, delicious, nutritious food that we just have like completely messed up and created into a system that's a marketplace. It's like you know, like Jesus would be flipping tables, like, you know, and like,
what is this? Non-organic?
Exactly. You cut what corner?
Right. You make a mockery of my creation.
It's true though, right? I mean, you know, I think that I feel like very passionate about this and driven from God to do something about this. I think He wants our people to be, He wants humans to be healed. He wants them to eat the like fruits that He's created and the vegetables. To
be healthy and free, man.
And not subjected to loads of medications and man-made stuff that like no, I'm not saying medication is bad. I think
there's a place
we've done amazing things, but I think it's like the first go-to is like, oh, you have this problem? There's 7 different medications for that. I choose this one. You know, and like there's such an opportunity to, through diet, and obviously there's people who are nutritionists, and now they've studied and got masters in this, and more of them are speaking out about how to heal the body through nutrition. And I think God loves that. Like I think He loves seeing that turnaround. And so, you know, I grow very few vegetables in my 12-inch balcony where I live. I have one garden box, and
that's the LA life.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have fields; we just have a balcony.
Exactly, if you can even call it that. So I would love to get some land, man, and grow some stuff regeneratively, and just you know, try to feed myself that way, or feed family or friends or neighbors that way, and just start small with some impact, and then kind of see goes and where it takes me.
I love that. When I was in Reading, I spent a couple years. My buddy rented this spot and started a farm, and man, I think we had about 4 or 5 gardens. We had grapevines, and then I eventually got some goats and stuff like that. But it was really really cool to see when I moved in. He had everything just pretty much just blossoming. He was a professional landscaper. He felt like God told him start organic gardens, and he did. And it was so much land. He just used like sections of the property to just grow, and he ended up having so much produce that we started feeding families around the community, you know, who had a bunch of kids and sometimes struggled to feed their kids or whatever. It might have been a rough month or something, so we would put out notifications, come Saturday and get your veggie box. And I mean, we fed so many people, man. It was amazing, man. It was like, it was a huge deal. I remember one time we put together a box for Benny Johnson, and it had like all these champagne grapes and stuff in it. It was so good. She was like, "Whoa, where'd you get this?" I was like, "It was on the farm that I live on," and it was so freeing. I moved in. I think the first week he told me, anything you see, eat. You can have.
Except from the one tree.
Except for the one tree. And I was like, what's that? Yeah. What's that tree? The chocolate tree. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like, anything you can see, just eat. I was like, okay, great. So I would, in the morning, go out to the field, and they had these little organic watermelons. I would chop one. I would eat a whole organic watermelon, like a small one, for my breakfast. Oh. And then I would do 50 push-ups and go into work, Yes. And then that just really fueled my day. Yeah. And I felt amazing, all the phytonutrients in there and the hydration. And then I come home from work, and then I would go out and pick all the different lettuces that we had out there. I would pick tomatoes and onions and green onions and peppers.
Let me ask you something about those, like onions and tomatoes. Yeah. How different did they taste versus the ones you buy at the grocery store?
A lot different. Yeah. Some of them were sweeter, had more flavor, were robust, a lot of juice. Some of them almost candy like you can eat it just whole, like some tomatoes and store. You're like, I'd rather have that on the salad or mixed in with like a saute. Yep. These ones were so good that you would eat them right out the vines. Yep. Some people call it vine ripened. Yep. Which is another debate. That's a whole people say like, well, vine ripened, that's everything grows on the vine. What are you talking about? But it was amazing to like experience everything off of the vine when I ate it. And I ended up losing 7.5 pounds in the first week and a half. And it was just like, I wasn't trying to, I just was eating off the vine every day. And apparently that produce was so pure. He made sure like the soil was organic, everything was fresh, and he retilted the land, replaced it with fresh organic soil, all this stuff. And it was pretty fascinating to experience, and it helped me actually lose some pounds like naturally,
which is crazy.
Yeah, which is crazy. There wasn't like crazy exercise program. I mean, I did like 50 push-ups before work, but that was about it. It was just, I didn't do it every day. It was just more to get my blood pumping because I was doing security work at the time. And so I think there's something special about living that life of farming and then actually providing it for the community. We just went to Reading recently, and our friends, the Palmas, Simon and Marissa Palma, have a beautiful, gorgeous house down the street from where I lived on that farm, Lima Ranch Road, I believe. And they have their own home there, and they have a massive property, and they're doing basically regenerative like agriculture. And every time we go there, they're planting another thing and another thing. And then the sides of the house are just lined with different fruit trees. And so I told him, I said, you got to provide some of the local nurseries with these fruit trees. And he's like, I'm going to start doing that. And so it's like becoming so bountiful. He's saying that the kids and families are coming in the backyard. They let everybody pick the strawberries, the grapes. And they took a children's play center and they lined it with vines. And so now it's just flowing with grapes. Wow. So now, it's like a whole, you climb up and go down the slide. All that's just entwined in vines.
Dude, it's amazing.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So, that really changed my heart. And he had several of us over recently. And everything, he made like this big salad bar. Everything was from their garden, I believe. And we all just enjoyed it. It was like incredible. The food was so fresh. And you felt good afterwards.
Yeah.
Like you kind of had a little energy.
You're getting the nutrients you need, and like it doesn't have those added sprays and stuff that you don't want. It's like like both sides are better. Yeah, and I just, it's amazing that the food is available that tastes better, does better for your bodies, and does less damage to your bodies. And it's just, it's hard to access, right? Like it's not available for so even if you learn all this info, like I've learned all this info, there's one farm in Moore Park, or there might be a little. No, they're farther than. They're like Camarillo, I think.
Oh, no,
Fillmore.
Okay, gotcha.
But I get their CSA, the boxes, the delivery boxes from them.
Okay.
They're called Soa Heart, and honestly, they're like the best produce that I can find in LA because they do regenerative organic. They're really legit. They don't cut any corners. And they do like delivery boxes, so I get one. I'm like a little outside the delivery zone, so I deliver to a friend and pick up from his porch.
Oh, okay, yeah. Hey man, catch that box.
Yeah,
I'll be there Saturday to come get it, man. Hey man, I took a pepper if you don't mind. I just wanted to try myself.
Yeah, exactly. I could see like a little on his chin.
Yeah, you can
like,
see a little seed on his chin.
Yeah.
You ate it, didn't you, man?
Yeah. I'm missing a strawberry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to find. So I would love to grow some stuff. And like I said, the same as you, like give it to people who need it, neighbors, and not be something too big. But I think we have a huge disconnect. Like, for us, like growing up, like food comes from a shelf, or the produce section in the grocery store. And we kind of like forget about this cool connection to like plants, and like your friends have a slide with like grapevines going down. Like, I mean, it's just not something we see or get to experience.
Yeah, because the kids are kind of bigger now, so they don't play with it as much. So they just took it and just vined it, wrap the vines around it, and there's grapes growing, draping off the slide. And it looks cool too, actually. It looks pretty sweet because it's like a wooden play set.
Yep. That's so cool. So it looks natural.
I know, dude. I was like, you guys are so incredible. He's like, oh, we're planting more stuff over here. And they're mulberries, or they have a ton of different mulberry like breeds. And it's like, those are really, really high antioxidants. And mulberries is like a whole thing you could research. But yeah, they have like a ton of mulberries. And so, yeah, it's really awesome to see like, how God flows through like, I feel like that's his heart, like through nutrition and health and wellness. Yeah.
It's like you guys are blowing it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're dropping the ball.
Yeah.
It's time to bring it back to the garden.
It's time. It really is.
Yeah.
Like literally, like let's do it. And like my brother's kids are like 3 and 2 or almost 4. Yeah. And I'm just like, man, like I would love for them to know at a young age, like where stuff comes from. It's not from DoorDash, and it's not from the grocery store. And like, there's just a cool connection of like picking things off the vine, like you said, and it tastes better and it's healthier and like all of the things that you want. But we live in like a society that's very focused on convenience and like how quickly can I get in pre-made meals and all this stuff. And, you can't always like for every meal go pick your vegetables. Like that would be difficult, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
But like, how do we incorporate that into our society more and like get people excited about that? And I think people are understanding a little bit more, and they're starting to look at packages and go like, oh, can I pronounce all of these ingredients?
Exactly.
Nope. All right, next. And I think that's a good start, but I think there's a long way to go. And a lot of other countries are really doing it, like Norway, where like all their cows, or like, or a lot more regulations in Europe of what they can't do to things. And
yeah. I have friends in the UK when they came over here to go to school. They asked me to take them shopping because they didn't have a car, and so they were like, "What is this? What is this crop? What's in this crop, man? I just want yogurt, And I was just like, wow, what do you mean? Like, we're in Trader Joe's, he's loud, and everybody's like, what is he talking about? What is he going on about? And he's just like, this is banned in my country. He's like, they don't even allow this, and we're like, I was like, well, they don't allow what? What's the ingredient? And so he was just saying certain things are banned in the UK. And he's like, why are you guys still using this crop? You're spraying your crops with this, man, And so I was just like, wow, man, like that's pretty fascinating to hear. I didn't realize how bad it was when he's like, certain things are banned, even in, certain Asian countries, which have lower food standards. He said that some of the ingredients that we use are banned even there, but we're still using them. And that was eye-opening for me. It was like, wow, is it really this bad?
Yeah. And I think it's like a perspective check. Like, and I'd love to share that information with people.
Right.
In a film way, maybe. I mean, media is so impactful. So how can I take
totally do
that skill set and like teach people or open their eyes or give them a different perspective shift on like where we're at and where we need to be. And I think it's important.
Dude, we got to do it, man.
Let's do it.
Let's get it to the people.
Let's get to the people.
Well, Mike, man, I certainly appreciate you coming on for this segment about health and wellness and, regenerative farming and, nutrition. And I would like to have you back on and talk more about that, because I think you should do some sort of doc series and just more information. And I'm praying, man, that God gets you that farm, because we need more like local farmers to step up and really supply the community with, health and wellness. So yeah, but I appreciate you coming on today, man. It's always fun to have you. I feel like we can just go on and on, but we don't want to keep the people too long. So.
We should do a 24-hour straight combo one day.
See who has the stamina to hang with it. There's probably that one person who's like, man, I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, 10 cups of coffee later.
Yes.
Yeah, but thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in on yet another episode of the podcast. We love you. We love your viewership. Post down in the comments below what was your favorite part of the video, what you loved, and what you would like to see and hear more of. With that said, God bless you all and have a wonderful day.